We lost 3 big jobs last year that added up to over $100,000, and in this video, I'm going to break down what those jobs were, how we got in front of them, as well as what we learned from losing them. The last job that I'm going to share with you guys is probably the biggest lesson of all because of the way that we lost it. So hit the thumbs up button and let's go ahead and jump right into this one. We're giving away a pressure washing business starter kit to a Quote IQ Premium or Platinum subscriber this month. So if you want to win, I'll leave a link in the comment section and the description. This app will help you to send invoices, estimates, collect payments, and keep track of customers, and that's all on the free version. We're also doing WashCon at the beginning of February, so if you want to learn from myself, Mike, Aaron, and Cody in person on how to crush it in your pressure washing business in 2023, check out the first link in the comment section for tickets. Now, losing any job is obviously painful, but when we look back over the course of the year, we lost almost $200,000 in jobs, and as the saying goes, we can learn a lot more from our failures than we can our successes, and that's why I wanted to make this video and share with you guys the biggest things that we learned from the biggest jobs that we lost. I also want this video to be a lesson on the fact that when you get a call from a prospective customer that seems as though it could be a big job, you really don't want to get your hopes up too much, which I know is hard because a lot of guys will get googly eyes. They'll start counting the money too soon before the estimate even gets accepted, and that's ultimately what kills their chances of landing these types of jobs, and this is something that we've had to learn over this past year. The other big lesson of today's video is the fact that the more quotes you do, the better you'll get at doing those quotes. The more jobs you walk with property managers, the better you'll get at communicating with property managers, the better questions you'll ask, the better you'll become at differentiating yourself from your competition, the better you'll be able to set expectations, the better you'll be able to communicate concerns that that person might have and how you're able to accommodate those concerns. So if you're early on in your business, just know that you might lose $100,000 in jobs in 1 year, but can you imagine the compounding effect of the education that you're going to get by putting yourself in the position to lose those jobs and how much better you're going to be than your competition at all the elements that go along with this quoting process? I mention this a lot, but Mike has been quoting for 20 years. He's probably lost millions and millions of dollars of jobs, but because he now has that experience, he's so much better than every other person that goes out to do the estimate, and that experience now allows him to land bigger jobs than he ever could before. So don't sweat it if you lose jobs. It's a learning process. It's a part of becoming better. Also, if you lose this much in jobs, you know that you're doing one thing right for sure, and that is that your marketing is tight. You figured out the systems needed to get in front of the right people and have the opportunity to land these big jobs. So although this video is about lessons, the fact that we were able to get in front of these people and almost land these big jobs is a sign that we're obviously doing something right. Now, the first big job that we lost was actually our first apartment complex estimate. We quoted it at a little bit over $30,000, and we were able to get this one because of the way that I leveraged Facebook so that all my friends and family know about my pressure washing business. And so on this one, I actually had a guy reach out to me that I went to high school with who does property maintenance for a huge apartment complex in Baton Rouge, and he wanted us to come out and give him a quote on doing some pressure washing. Now, this was great because it gave us an opportunity to quote our first apartment complex, which we had never done before. We had no customer acquisition costs, no cost of advertising because this was a referral from somebody that we knew, and that pretty much took all the pressure off of landing it because we had nothing to lose. Now, looking back, it's probably a good thing that we didn't get this job. The property was older. There really wasn't proper water spouts on any of the buildings. There was tons of cars in the parking lot even during the day, and we got a feeling as we were walking the property that they were going to be very price driven. From the questions that we asked them, we figured out that in the past, the painting company that they had hired did the pressure washing as well, and typically painting companies will charge much less than a professional pressure washing company because it's kind of like an add-on service to their painting business. You could also tell from the property that it wasn't the highest quality, hadn't been maintained very well. So from what the property manager told us, as well as from what we gathered from taking the tour of the apartment complex, we knew that our price was probably going to be too much for them, and at the end of the day, that was the case. So they ended up going in a different direction with regards to the pressure washing, and that was pretty much it. We named our price, they couldn't meet it, they went a different way. The second biggest job that we lost is the biggest, and I say lost because we didn't end up actually doing that job last year. However, it's important for you guys to realize that until the person you give the quote to either says we went with somebody else, or we don't need your services, or flat out no, there's still an opportunity to land that job. So one of my partners, Jacob, knows somebody who's pretty high up at a very large dealership over here, and because, as I mentioned before, we tell everybody about our business, he was able to get us in front of the dealership to do a quote on pressure washing the building, pressure washing all the parking lot, and restriping everything. So the quote for this one came out to be over $70,000 for everything, and we technically never got a no on this one. We quoted everything together, and of course a huge price tag came out because it's a ton of work. However, we did give them them the option to do one thing at a time. So we said, yeah, we'll clean the building first, and then we'll come and clean the parking lot, and then of course we can restripe it after that. They told us that they weren't ready to make that kind of purchasing decision at this time. So periodically, every month or every other month, Kale will reach out and ask them if they've decided they needed any work done. The most important lesson here is to never give up on a lead, especially one of this magnitude. And that's something that we are so good at. Kale will not leave them alone until they either tell us no or they tell us that they've gone with somebody else. And we've been able to land some huge jobs because of this consistent drip follow-up. We call them every so often, we stay in front of them, we stay top of mind. So that way, whenever they're ready to make a purchasing decision, we are the ones that they ultimately go with. So huge key here is to always follow up until a prospect tells you no. So we technically didn't lose this one. However, it did account for a huge portion of the jobs that we didn't land in 2022. So I wanted to include it in this video. The last job that we lost, and probably the biggest lesson that we learned, was a commercial account that had a few buildings that they needed washed, as well as roof washes and some concrete cleaned as well. I'm not exactly sure what they did at these buildings. I think it was some sort of consulting business. However, the lead came in on Google. We went out, did the quote on it, met with the person in charge of making the purchasing decision, asked him all the right questions. We felt really good about the quote we put together, and it wasn't until a couple weeks later that we learned that we didn't land it. Now, Kale has a relationship with several other pressure washing businesses, and he knew a guy from another company that also was doing a quote on this job, so he called him up to see what he bid it at. He did it at a few $1,000s higher than we did, but he said that he didn't land it either. However, he knew the guy that had ultimately landed the job, and he said that that guy had quoted $30,000 to do this cleaning. Now, I'm sure we've been guilty in the past of lowering estimates a little bit, or maybe sending in a price that was a little too low in order to put in a great price and land the job. However, the $10,000 estimate that we put in on this one was very accurate to the amount of work that needed to be done. Like I mentioned before, we didn't feel like we were underpricing ourselves whatsoever, but we're also offering plenty of value on our end to make the deal as mutually beneficial as possible. So when we heard that the person who actually landed the job charged 3 times more than us, we really couldn't believe it. And the biggest lesson of this video is you really don't know the motives of the person who is making the purchasing decisions. On the first apartment complex job, we could gather that they were going to be very price focused. However, on this job, maybe they had allocated a budget for property maintenance and they hadn't met the quota for the end of the year, so it just made sense to go with a more expensive company, or maybe they associated a higher price with a higher quality service. All that we can do on every single job that we go out and quote is to ask the right questions, present ourselves in the right manner, and put ourselves in the best possible position to land the job. And whether that business decides to go with us or somebody else, we know that we did our best with the information that we had available at that point in time, and we either win or we learn. So learn is going to be the word of the day on this video. If you guys made this far in the video, comment down below learn, and I'll hashtag you a real one. Be sure to check out Quote IQ, check out WashCon. But my name is Justin. This is Forever Self-Employed, and until next time, hustle hard and get that money, baby. Peace.